Let's go ahead and lay out the facts. Yesterday started off great, went great, ended great. And I believe it's all because we started the day with a cold start for the mother freaking boys. Today's an M3 type of day. All right, little girl. Now you may be wondering, Devin, isn't it the middle of winter? Why are you driving the M3? If I pull up the weather report, you will see we are finally actually about to get hit with winter. If you take a look at the weather report, it's currently 29 degrees. Tomorrow is going to be 7 as a high, next day 8 as a high, a low of -7. So, truth be told, this is probably the last, very, very last day that I will be allowed to drive this car until springtime. And on the last day, before it goes in the garage all winter long, of course it needs to be cleaned up. That in itself is a good enough reason to give it a good old rip to the shop, enjoy the last day, and we can get it cleaned up as well, provided it doesn't start snowing and then it gets dirty on the way home. But anywho, I need to build a throttle body adapter. So I have I keep forgetting the brand. I'm pretty sure it's a Magnus. If I'm remembering correctly, like a Magnus V1 or V2 intake manifold for the Evo 8 project. And it takes what I believe is a Ford 4.6 throttle body flange or bolt hole. I don't know why they didn't make it to accept an Evo 8 throttle body, but they did not. So I had 2 flanges cut out. One for, oh shit. I hate uncontrolled intersections. Gives me anxiety. 2 flanges cut out. One for the Magnus intake manifold and one for the Evo 8 throttle body. I'm going to take those 2 flanges and I'm going to weld them together to build some sort of little adapter. I did order up an S90 throttle body, but that bolts up to a factory Evo 8 manifold, so it would still need the adapter. And I'm not so sure if I'm going to run the S90 throttle body anyway. I mentioned it to a buddy who fairly knowledgeable with Evos, and he mentioned that they do leak quite often. So I would like your guys' input as well. Do you have a S90 throttle body on your car? If so, has it been good? Has it been leaky, or was it a waste of time and money? Or is it good, you know? Let me know. So ultimately today, we have one goal and one goal only. And if we can get this done, we can move forward. But this is important. I really want to run this intake manifold. Stock manifolds don't look all that cool. I already have this one. We may as well run it. The goal for today is to get this throttle body to fit onto this manifold. Now, like we discussed, this pattern is different than this pattern. So I have this flange here that we had cut out to bolt on right there. This flange is for the throttle body. And now we need to make a way. I'm assuming we're gonna have to kind of do a little rotation activity here. Bolt this on. This will be welded together, and the throttle body will kind of sit at a little bit of an angle. Less angle, the better. Only for aesthetic purposes. It's not gonna affect anything with how the car runs, but aesthetically, it looks better if it's just as straight as could be. So this guy, let's bolt her on. Bolts are might a bit long, but these are just temporary. I'm glad my drawings worked. I whipped these drawings up in Photoshop. Spent way too long, but they clearly work fine. So that's nice. So it's looking like it's gonna have to sit at that angle right there. That's a lot of angle. Let me do some thinking. Instead of building an adapter, I don't think I'm gonna use this plate. So initially I was gonna go bolt that plate on there, weld that on crooked, blah, 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 blah. I don't ever plan on running a Ford 4.6 throttle body. So why couldn't we just take our Evo flange, center her up, weld that on, take our throttle body, and whapow, I should say, bolt it on, and be done. Why won't that work? You know what? It will work, and that is exactly what we're gonna do. Nice. You know, if I was really, really good, I would just completely lop this flange off and weld this flange in place. But I have a very strong feeling I would completely just butcher this entire manifold and throw it in the garbage. So let's not do that. All right, time to nut up a little bit, I guess you could say. I'm gonna lop the flange off. Got a new flange made that is this size with the bolt hole Ford Evo 8 and weld that on. This manifold could be in the garbage by the end of this, but let's hope that my TIG welding on aluminum skills are good enough to where we do not destroy this thing. I guess the first order of business is gonna be to somehow cut this guy off. I don't have a good way to cut it off, so I'll cut it off the only way that I can cut it off, with a cutoff wheel. Wish me luck. So I got the flange cut off. I'm gonna go ahead and knock down a lot of this weld. So when we weld on the new flange, it looks good, not junky. Manifold is all cleaned up, ready for its new flange to be welded on. In the meantime, let's wash the BIM. Of course, as I was pulling it in, it started to snow a little bit, but this thing is absolutely filthy. Can't be having that. There's one thing that keeps happening with this stupid car. Well, it's not the car's fault. It's not a BMW fault. It's this freaking trunk clip. It's an adjustable trunk clip. It just doesn't fit good enough to actually stay on unless you freaking put rib nuts in here, drill holes in the trunk, which of course I'm not gonna do. What a pile. I like how it looks, but that's so bumming, for lack of a better term, that I might just go back to the OEM Alpine White trunk lip. Unless someone knows of a really, really like OEM fitting carbon lip, because I love how it looks, but I don't love that. All right, back to messing around with the intake manifold. Flange is gonna be finished up here in a minute. And I am messing around with the throttle cable. So there's no mounts on this Magnus manifold for the throttle cable bracket. I have our cable here. And initially I was gonna just slop some up top, you know, like stock. Stock bolts on right here. I figured let's slap some right here in the same perspective location. And then I got to thinking, why don't we make it look better and just slap the cable on the bottom? So that should work fine. I'm gonna get the throttle body flange welded up, make sure everything's mounted properly first, and then we need to figure out the throttle cable mount. So I'm gonna head out. I need to grab some aluminum that we can weld on and drill and tap for the throttle cable mount, and then this flange should be done within 15 minutes, they said. New flange is acquired. Instead of the factory 65mm bore, I decided to go with a 70, I think it was a 74mm bore, because that's what size our throttle body that we ordered in is. And then I got a big old long piece of 1/2" 6061, and that can be drilled and tapped for our 6mm mounting locations for the throttle cable. This is gonna be an all-day thing. 100%. We still need to powder coat it, still need to weld everything together, get it powder coated. I want to do some lasering on it so it looks cool, get it on the car. We got a ways to go. This whole entire flange should be symmetrical, so no matter what way we install it, we'll be good to go. Look at that, that's gonna be nice. So the flange is gonna sit like that. Let's see, flange like that. Throttle body like, it's gonna be kind of hard to hold everything up in place. You guys get the point though. So let's go ahead and tack this guy up and then start slapping down a bead. If this thing was anything but aluminum, it'd be very, very quick for me to weld. But aluminum is very hard for me to weld. I shouldn't say very hard, but it's, out of anything else, it is most certainly the most difficult. If I've learned anything with aluminum, it needs to be as clean as possible. Okay, she's fully tacked up. Time to start running around this thing. I need to stop dipping my freaking tungsten. It's the hardest part for me, man. I'm just always getting a touch of filler on the tungsten and it ruins everything. Now I ain't no professional welder, but I did what I could. Flange is completely welded on as a 1/2 inch thick flange. So assess the bead if you want. Keep in mind, like I said, I ain't no professional. Okay, this bracket right here, I don't really know what it's for. I'm assuming it's for some random other throttle cable. I don't need it. I'm gonna lop that off. From what I can tell, you know what that's for? I'm glad I did not lop that off because that is for the dipstick. So we do need that. Now we just need a throttle cable mount. So what are we gonna do for that? I'm gonna bolt our throttle body on. I don't have threads yet, so I just jammed a M8 in there. That'll hold for now. Just enough to sort out the throttle cable. Let's make sure this is actually gonna work. I could do drive-by-wire, but then we'd have to do a different ECU. So I'm thinking something like that ought to do the trick. Now these are so slotted that if we don't get them in the perfect position, we have about 10 feet, it feels like, of play. Brum, 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 brum. I don't know why that won't work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the first hole in the same distance as the OEM manifold. So from here to that flange on the OEM manifold is 113 millimeters, right about there. And then the holes are 45 mil apart. I'm gonna be welding some of this 1/2 inch rod probably right to the runners right here, and then we can drill and tap it. Cut a little angle on it so it can fit on the runner better. And this piece is gonna be 36 inches long. So I'm gonna make 2 diagonal cuts, 36 millimeters long, not inches. Get those welded up. We'll be in business. Now I don't know how beefy throttle cable mounts need to be, but those are pretty beefy. I would say welded around like 65–70% of it. Of course, this inside edge I can't really get to, but that'll work. So all of the welding is done. From here we need a drill and tap the flange that we welded on, and then the 2 stubs. So the flange is going to take, it's an M8 tap drill. I think it's a 6.7 millimeter drill bit for an M8. Let's see here. 6.8 millimeter. Okay. An M6x1 is a 5 millimeter drill bit. Now, while welding aluminum isn't ever that fun, drilling aluminum is. One day I'll upgrade my tap set. Got a good old tap and die set from the Harbor Freight Special Store. A little bit of cutting oil always helps to knock these threads in place. Now, being that these threads do go all the way through the flange, unlike a factory manifold, we just got to remember when we put the throttle body bolts in, just a touch of RTV on them, so the bolts themselves do not leak. Don't want no vacuum leaks from random places. It's a lot of work for a freaking manifold, man. At least to me. If you're good with the TIG, good with welding aluminum, not a big deal whatsoever, but to me, that was a lot of work. I have decided on splatter black for the manifold, but with a little bit of a twist. So I'm gonna sandblast it again, and we can go ahead and do a little bit of polishing. You guys will see why. Instead of a polish, I'm gonna go for a brushed finish. Okay, last thing we need is a quick mask. Mask that surface, that guy, plug those holes, plug those threads, and we're done. It is time for the powder. So let's blow it off, make sure there's no sand on it whatsoever. I feel like the pores kind of open up a little bit when you slap it in the oven, so. Let's bake her out and watch the magic. The Mani just came, well, not just came out of the oven, but it is out of the oven. And she looks freaking amazing. Now, the cool part. Hop in there, put your finger under it. Would it hurt? I knew you were gonna mess this thing up, Jared.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, it is? Alright, what?
I'll blind you.
Dude, that's crispy though. It's crispy. You know, I thought about having something cool lasered on, but I decided to keep it simple and just slap the Magnus back where she belongs. So this guy is ready to go on the car. Alrighty, let's get everything else mocked up. Intercooler piping, the throttle cable, make sure everything else is gonna work just fine, just in case we need to order more parts. I'm hoping our throttle cable is gonna work, being that it's underneath, you know? I think it should be fine. Don't know why that would matter. I just tossed the stock throttle body on for now. Still up in the air whether or not we're gonna run the stock one, but for tonight, we can mock it up with the factory. Let's toss on the cable onto the pedal and see how she works. I think that'll be fine there. Now my main concern is the intercooler piping. I did order it for the Magnus manifold, but I know Magnus has changed up their manifolds over the years. I do think it'll be fine, but let's take a look. So this one, One would assume that this pipe goes here. That would be a safe assumption, but that may very well be wrong. My assumption is most certainly wrong. Okay, so if that pipe runs there, this is not gonna work as is for sure. We're just gonna need a little, probably a 45-degree coupler to make this work. Don't mind the big old throttle body gap. If I run this throttle body, we're gonna have to do some nipple deletions so it sits flush. But as you can see, we're gonna need a 45-degree coupler. Well, this is the gist of how the bay is gonna look. The only things that are missing is the intake that runs there, our radiator hoses, the BOV is going there, and then some lines for the catch can. Everything else is pretty much done, and it looks very, very nice. Very OEM plus, which is my goal the whole entire time. So in total, here is exactly what we need to actually get this thing fired up. We don't need our new throttle body to come in, but it's gonna be here tomorrow, so we'll deal with that when that comes. Still unsure if we're gonna run that, like I said. We need the 45-degree coupler from the throttle body back to the 3-inch intercooler pipe. We need a 2.5 to 3-inch adapter reducer coupler for that. We need engine oil, radiator to be installed, which I might honestly just mess around with that right now. Coolant, AC compressor oil, power steering fluid, brake fluid, bleed the brakes, bleed the clutch, gear oil for the trans, rear diff gear oil. And the most important thing is the fuel injector adapters. Let me show you what I mean. We're running 1650s in here. I'm only shooting for maybe, let's just set the goal at 550 wheel, okay? 550 wheel on E85, it's gonna be a dual map setup, no flex fuel from what I am thinking as of right now. I don't think I'm gonna do flex. So dual map setup, let's say 550 wheel on E85. These are a set of 1650s. I ran these in the all-wheel drive Honda for a little bit, and then I wanted to make 800 or whatever the freaking car made. So these are gonna be perfect for what we're trying to make on this car. Now, this is a 14 millimeter top hat. Evo 8 is an 11 millimeter, and then you also need to run a bottom hat, is what they call it as well. So those are on the way. And lastly, I could always pull this off another car, but I do need a fuel pressure regulator. Other than that, this thing is ready for a first start. What a long road. Wow. I might be missing a few things here and there, but I don't think I am. That's exciting. Exciting, exciting stuff. Well, it's been like 40 years since I ordered this radiator. So I don't really remember what brand it was, but it's nice and thick and shiny. I should have ordered, is it the Evo 5 radiator that you can just run a straight hose on and it looks super clean? Should have done that. Now, of course, this fan I need to go through and refurb, but let's just make sure everything fits. Okay, that fits perfectly like it should. Put these little grommets on that the radiator slides into. It's a tight fit. Will it even fit? Oh yeah. She fits. So this hose goes here. I might do a different radiator. I might do the one with the neck over here. I don't like that. That's not very ideal. I'm gonna order up, it's a 4, 5, or 6 Koyo radiator. Part number, if you're wondering, is HH030939. And here's the difference, okay? 789 radiator, big old loop-de-doop in the radiator hose. Now a 456 radiator, you see the outlet is right over here, so it's pretty much a straight shot right to the thermostat housing. So you need the radiator and the upper hose, but it's not only is it way cleaner, this is like not even 2 fingers away. And I don't like that. Now I was gonna do a carbon fiber one of these, or set of these, but I figured this is gonna match everything very, very nicely. What I have here is a set of fuse box and relay box covers. Titanium, of course. I'm really digging the amount of silver that's gonna be going on in this bay. With the catch can, of course, all the trans and the head and all that silver, the bare exhaust manifold, and these guys right here. And this is gonna top it off. Now I did apply the Cerakote trim coat to these, so I'm hoping it'll still stick. Quick wipe down with some IPA. This guy goes here, nicely covers up all of our scratches. And this guy goes there. Now that is very OEM plus. Well, it will be when I take care of our power wire.